So, what's the family story?
Yes, so my parents are from former Yugoslavia, so they are Serbian. I am Serbian, and I was actually born in Germany because at the time in the early 90s, um, there was a huge conflict, and they had to, find refuge somewhere else. So they had moved to Germany. Then we moved to Alberta, which was an absolute culture shock, apparently. I don't really remember because I was about 4 or 5.
Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome back to English with Lewis. It's a pleasure to have you back. As you can see already, I have another wonderful guest, and we're going to have a chat. We're going to get to know her, and then from there, we might go over some random questions just so you can practice your English listening skills whilst learning some advanced vocabulary, phrasal verbs, and expressions. But before she introduces herself, let me know, where in the world are you right now? And what's the weather like? Because we were just having a bit of small talk and we're both complaining about how grim and gloomy and depressing it is outside. So,
Absolutely.
Ivana, hello, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So I'm sure people will recognize you, but could you do us a favor and tell us, who are you, where are you from, and what do you do?
Absolutely. So I am Ivana, also known as Miss Ivana by my younger students. I am a private English teacher located in Toronto, Canada. I have been teaching for about 11 years now, firstly in the private school system and then on my own. So I offer online classes, group classes, or one on one for English. It can be either ESL if it is for adult students, or maybe reading and writing skills, as well as social sciences tutoring for younger students. So just to develop those areas of improvement. I also do in home sessions locally in Toronto, and I'm trying to build up my Instagram as well. You and I were talking about this earlier, Lewis. I was praising him for being so consistent, and I hope you guys know how much work goes into something like this. So, yes, that is what I do. And yeah.
Perfect. Good to hear. Well, yeah, it is a lot of work. So if I fall asleep in the middle of this interview, you know why.
Yes.
And just going over a nice phrasal verb or two there. To fall asleep, we could also say to nod off or doze off. So
Yeah.
if I nod off in the middle of this conversation, you know why. Or if I doze off in the middle of this conversation, it's because I'm exhausted. I'm shattered. I'm knackered.
Not good. I love it.
Only joking. Now, so you mentioned that you teach a wide range of people
Yes.
online, in person. Firstly, which ones do you prefer? As in online or in person?
Okay. I thought you were going to ask about the age group. I said I cannot.
Who is your favorite?
um which one do I prefer online? It's tough. I like the mixture of having both. Why? Because the online classes give me and the student flexibility of having the sessions wherever, whenever. Also, my older students prefer online because of that flexibility. However, with my younger age groups, I find that it really is, even with the technology nowadays, it really is difficult to keep their attention and to get them to understand technical aspects that go into classes. So keeping them engaged is challenging. That's number one. So I find that in home sessions give us, it makes it more interactive, it's more creative. They see me, they can hear me, they experience the class in a different way. So it really just depends on the student's needs. And personally, I just find that both have different kinds of benefits. So I wouldn't be able to say I like one over the other.
Very diplomatic.
It's true. How
And
about you? Do you prefer the online more?
I mean, I'm so used to it now because
Yeah,
I haven't taught an in-person class since like the pandemic happened.
right.
So honestly, I don't even know if I'd be able to do it nowadays. I've got so used to teaching online and so used to being in my own space
Yes.
and organizing my classes, my content, and all of the work within the
Right.
realm of my flat and thinking
Hmm.
about like having to commute and get public transport or cycle to an office or a house,
Yes. Yes.
honestly, it's not for me anymore. I think I'm set that for the foreseeable future, I'm going to teach online. There might be one or two exceptions if it's someone that just lives around the corner and I've got a
Right.
good
Right.
relationship with them. But I'd need a lot of incentives to change my current situation and go in
Yes.
person.
Yes. Maybe if they bribe you with coffee or something.
Coffee, sandwiches, all the freebies are welcome.
Yes. 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 Yeah, I get that. You get used to a certain way of teaching and then it feels comforting and you've also mastered certain aspects of it. So it's also good to specialize, right? This is what I offer and that's that.
Exactly. And I imagine that it's kind of fun and let's say it's nice and flexible that you're not always doing the same thing all of the time. You have different age
Yeah.
groups, different subjects.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
this something that you like, or have you considered maybe specializing and niching down?
Yes. So great question. I was originally, so when I first graduated, I had specialized and only taught in adult ESL settings. That was the only thing I was doing. Then I ended up getting a part-time role with younger age groups. And there was something I almost felt, I don't want to say I felt younger, but I felt the energy from these kids that I don't necessarily get from adults. And, it just kind of kept me on my feet. I was learning so many new things and they make me laugh and they kind of, kids have no filter. They just say whatever they think. So going from a setting, at least in a college setting where I had to be very professional and right, collected, to having an experience with children, I realized, okay, which one would I like to lean on more? But then as time went on, students were reaching out to me, especially via Instagram, of all age groups. So currently I'm enjoying that kind of variety. And maybe, I don't know, I don't know where I will be, let's say 5 years from now. Um, I'm not sure if I'm going to specialize because at the moment it kind of makes things exciting and keeps me young, but also gives me kind of that professional setting with the older students.
You have the best of both worlds, I suppose.
For now, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
one way of putting it anyway.
yes, 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 for sure.
And now I'm curious about the name, Heart of Learning. Is there a story behind the name of your company?
Yes, so uh, yes, in response, but actually, if you look at it in a grand on a grand scheme, no. I was literally sitting one day. Uh, I think I was in my room at my parents' apartment, and I was thinking, what could I say? I'm trying to create this brand. What, how could I phrase it so that it shows that I truly love what I do, that it's still professional and personable and I came across so many different kinds of names, but literally within a few minutes, it was just on the spot. And I'm like, you know what? Heart, I love teaching, but I don't want to say teaching because my students are learning and we want to focus on them. I love
Mhm.
learning. They love learning. And then I was like, heart of learning. And I'm like, huh. So I messaged my boyfriend, who's my husband now, and I said, what do you think of this? He goes, it has a nice ring to it. And I'm like, but I can't settle because this is I thought of it so quickly. It's not right, right? I have to think things through. And then I gave it a few days. I go, I really like it, and my parents liked it, and it just happened. I kind of felt it.
No, no, it sounds good. It makes sense
Yeah.
as well. And, it just something clicked. And as you said, it has a good ring to it. It sounds good. And
Thank you.
it has stuck. If that was the name of the company, when
Yes.
5 years ago, and
Yes.
since then it's the same, it's
Yeah.
stuck. It's here to stay.
It's here. It's here.
Now, let's go back in time a little bit. And why did you choose to become an English teacher or English coach? Where did all of this actually begin?
Okay, so I knew that I had some kind of love for teaching when I was in it was middle school, so maybe grade 7, because my brother, if he's listening to this, I have to share this story. But my brother, he's about 6 years younger than me. And, at the time, he was, I believe, in grade 2. And so we had moved to Canada, and he had to skip a grade because of his age, because of when he's supposed to start grade 1. And so he was already behind. And we were worried, will he exceed academically? Will he even meet the expectations? What do we do? And so after school, I would sit down and I'd be like, okay, what is it that he should know in grade 2? In English and math and geography, et cetera, et cetera. So I started creating little worksheets for him. So I would sit him down. I'd be like, today we're learning about the provinces and territories of Canada. And then I'd make a little test. And so I was like, this is fun. And then my brother goes, it was kind of natural for him because it seemed like we were playing a game and he was younger, right? And it really helped him and he made it through. And I thought, huh, okay, this is an interesting path, but I still hadn't decided at that point. Then I went, on to high school and I started really liking other areas like psychology, for example, or art. And then I was like, I really like writing, with this whole dilemma we have going on in university or going into university. What do we want to specialize in? So then I ended up taking English and sociology in university. And that's when I realized, this is really interesting. This dynamic some of my professors had with their students, this environment, especially if it's well curated, it's engaging, not the ones where the professors are just standing and you're taking notes and it goes on for 3 hours. And then after that, I started kind of chatting with some of my profs, and they shared with me which kind of avenues to take depending on what age group I want to teach. So that's when I started specializing in ESL. When I went, in Canada, we have this certificate called DTIL, which is like a sub diploma of TESOL. And then I went into TESOL afterwards. And yeah, so I think it was kind of a gradual realization. I felt the love for it at a young age and then eventually realized this is what I think I want to focus on.
Right.
So it
It
worked.
all starts with
Thanks.
your little brother. He was the one.
He was the one. That's right. He's like, you need to give me more credit. I'm like, yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah. Well done. Well, if you are watching this or listening to this, Ivana's brother, thank you.
Thank you,
And
Stefan.
I have lots of different questions related to this, but let's start with one that's kind of related to geography, because as you can see, there's a UK map behind me,
Yes.
and you
Yeah.
mentioned about the different provinces of Canada. Um, what are they? There's British Columbia on the west coast. There
Yes.
is Ontario, is that the one for Toronto?
Yes. Yes.
And there's Quebec, which is the French-speaking part.
That's right. That's
Then
right.
there's Newfoundland.
You know quite a bit. Okay. Okay.
There's
Yes.
Newfoundland and Labrador.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some random northern territories or something similar.
Yes.
Am I missing anything?
You're missing quite a bit. So we
I'm
have,
trying to go over it and picturing the map of Canada in my head, but that's as far as I can go.
yes, yes. So we have 10 provinces and we have 3 territories. So if we're going from the west, I guess if I'm mirroring, I'm hoping I'm going the right way. But so I'm in Ontario. Then we have, yes, the French speaking province of Quebec. Then on the east side, you have Newfoundland and Labrador. You have Nova Scotia. You have Prince Edward Island. You have, which one am I missing? PEI. Then if we're going more west from Ontario, you have Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. I also lived there. Very cold. Don't recommend it. Beautiful, but freezing. BC. And then you have Yukon, you have Northwest Territories, and you have Nunavut. So those are probably the ones you were referring to.
The
Not
northern one.
habitable. Yes, yes, yes.
The ones that are difficult to pronounce. None of
Yes.
the Yukon, all of these things.
Yes.
And within Canada, how much have you traveled around? Which areas of the country have you visited?
Yes. So I have been to Quebec. I went to Ottawa and Montreal and Quebec City, and then Toronto, all sorts of places. And then in Alberta, I lived in Edmonton, which is the capital. And then I wanted to visit BC. I have been wanting to visit BC for such a long time. And my Instagram friend, Kira, Prof Prep, I'm not sure if you know her, but she is a Canadian English teacher on Instagram. She helps students prepare for the IELTS test. She's up in BC. I've been wanting to visit her for so long, haven't gone to Vancouver yet. So far, 3 provinces.
Okay,
Have
so
you
you
been
still got
to Canada?
I've never been. Like, I've had a few conversations with different teachers about Canada, so I
Yeah.
know a little bit, and I've always been fascinated by um, travel documentaries and maps and stuff like
Mhm,
that.
mhm,
So
mhm.
that's why I'm kind of familiar in my head a little bit about what Canada is like. But of
Yes.
course, it's very cold, it's very modern. People say thank you a lot, and a lot of maple syrup.
Yes.
And what else is there? A lot of bears as well. And
Yes.
then with Quebec, the French speaking part, it's kind of bilingual. That's why,
Mhm.
like, the Prime Minister of Canada, they always need to speak a little bit of French as well,
Yes.
or they won't be accepted by the
Very true.
Quebecans.
That's right. That's right. That's very, I do find that, when I had visited Quebec, because of its history, of course, there is a divide there, a clear divide between the French speaking and the English speaking. And you are expected to speak French when you're in Quebec. So, especially in Quebec City or Old Montreal, whichever place we had visited, we were always greeted in French and asked, what would you like to order? And then as soon as you respond in English, they're like, "Ugh." And I'm like, well, we're in Canada, so I mean, sorry. Like, but
Do you speak any French, or is it something that you would like to learn?
so French, when you start learning it, I believe it's mandatory in all public schools starting in grade 4, I think. But I had, by the time we lived in Canada, then we moved back to the country my parents are from, and then we came back again. So by the time I had come back, I missed the years at which it was beginning to be taught. So when I came back, I was in grade 7 or 8, and my peers were already, they knew, I would say they were a beginner's level, right? Beginner level speakers. And so I just found that because I was so maybe worried and anxious and kind of thrown into that environment, I never got the chance to really grow a love for it. It was kind of, let me pass the tests, let me at least make sure I have a passing grade. And then in high school, I just dropped the classes. So I would say I know basic thank you, you're welcome, how are you, like this phrases. Other than that, no, unfortunately. How about you?
Maybe in the
You
future,
you
who
know
knows?
Spanish, right?
Yeah, my Spanish is pretty much fluent.
Wow.
And then I'm living in Belgium at the moment, so I speak a little bit of French. It's not the best, but I'd like to improve it. But honestly, in the last 6 months, it hasn't been a priority. So of
Yeah.
course I'm busy doing so many other things, and I
Yes.
reached a French level, which is good enough to get
Uh-huh.
by. just about.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
then when I want to actually have any proper conversations, we'll usually switch to English or Spanish, depending on who I'm speaking with.
Right,
So
right.
I like French and I would like to get better at it. But right now, my priority is about making content, teaching my classes, building my
Yes,
business. So then French learning has kind of had to take a back seat, at least for now.
yeah.
And I still speak Spanish on a daily basis practically because my
Wow.
girlfriend is Spanish
Oh, I
and
didn't know.
the neighbors downstairs as well, they're from Spain. So our social group here in Brussels is probably more in Spanish than
Then
any other language. So
hmm,
that's good to still
yeah,
have that contact with the language so it doesn't get too rusty because it
for
does.
sure.
If you don't practice a language, you do kind of lose it a little bit.
Yes, yes,
So if you're not in constant contact with the language and speaking it on maybe not a daily basis, but every
yes.
week, you do start to lose it. And then you'll be like, oh, what was that word? Oh, I can't remember this word. So
That's right.
practice does maybe not make perfect, but practice does make progress. And it'll just
Absolutely.
keep you at that level where it doesn't get too rusty. And then you enter this vicious cycle of like, oh no, my Spanish isn't good enough. And you get embarrassed about it. So
That's a huge thing. Yes, yes. And it happens very often with newcomers to English speaking countries. I'm sure it happens in the UK just as much as it does in Australia, Canada, US. You know, they come and they say, okay, I would love to immerse myself in an English speaking environment. And this is how I will become fluent. And then they, in their language classes, they steer off and kind of form cliques and groups with people from their own home countries. And then they continue to speak their native language, which is amazing because it gives you a sense of connection. But then they end up also going to grocery stores and speaking this language and continuously surrounding themselves with that first language. And then years after, even just because you live in an English speaking country, it doesn't mean that it'll necessarily help you unless you put in that effort, right? Like you said, constantly use the language as much as you can. Don't lose your first language by any means, but absolutely immerse yourself and use it all the time. That's the key.
I like the fact that you mentioned immersing yourself as well, because over the last couple of days, I've been looking at giving my website a facelift and changing the group classes and stuff that I offer. And
Right.
I've, like you, been thinking of different names for the classes and the website. And like I said, giving it a facelift to make it
Yes.
look more attractive so it
Yeah.
stands out. And
Yes.
the phrase that I use most often to describe the way that I learn languages and I preach learning languages is immersion. So I was thinking like, oh, how can I add immerse yourself into this page? How can I speak about British
Mhm.
English immersion? Which, of
Yes.
course, people think you do this when you move to an English speaking country, but it doesn't just happen because you've moved to that country. Because it's
That's right.
very easy to fall back on the language that you know, the culture that you know, and not integrate with other people that you can then speak the language with. So, this is
That's
very important to do if you do end up moving to an English speaking country. But
yes.
if that's not a possibility for you, which is probably the case of many people watching this video,
Yeah.
you can artificially immerse yourself in the language by reading the news, watching series, listening to
Yes.
podcasts.
Hmm.
Basically, all of the skills and things that you would normally do in your mother tongue, we need to try to switch them to English or whatever language you're trying to learn in order to make these language learning goals, I suppose.
Hmm. Agreed. Definitely.
Yeah. Preach. Immersion. Now, going back again to something you said, you mentioned that you moved to Canada and that your parents are not from Canada. So, what's the family story?
Yes. So my parents are from former Yugoslavia. So they are Serbian. I am Serbian. And I was actually born in Germany because at the time, in the early 90s, um, there was a huge conflict and they had to, find refuge somewhere else. So they had moved to Germany. Then we moved to Alberta, which was an absolute culture shock, apparently. I don't really remember because I was about 4 or 5. And then, it was tough because you want to be with your family. All of our family was still there, and we were so far, and everything was so different. So we ended up actually moving back. And I went to school there and I had to learn. I already spoke the language, but I had to learn how to write in Cyrillic and, start all over again. And it was still tough, the economy, especially after conflicts like that, it's hard to recover. So then we ended up coming back to Canada, but this time around, rather than over there, we said, maybe somewhere where the economy is more prosperous, where more people are moving to, because really Edmonton at the time it didn't have many newcomers because it wasn't as populated, let's say, as Toronto. It wasn't as industrialized. So we came here and we have been here since 2008, I would say. So this is the longest I've, lived in one place. And I'm going to stay here for sure. I'm used to it. I finally feel like calm, stable.
Is there any part of you that thinks that you'd like to go back and live in Serbia now that things have changed and improved?
I have thought about it many, many times, especially given that my grandmas are there. So I'm Serbian, but I'm from Bosnia, so modern day Bosnia. Um, because my grandmas are there and all of my cousins, and you feel an attachment, and that that's where you're from, right? Like where your ancestors are from, and you feel that attachment. So I've definitely thought about it many times, and I've had you know, an internal conflict with where do I feel most at home. But what I do think really pulled me to stay, to feel safe here or to feel stable, is my husband and his family, because we've been together for 8 years now. And, you want to start a family as well. And you want to kind of stay situated in that one place at that point. So I think that now, finally, in my 30s, I'm feeling happy here. So I think that that was the factor that made me feel like I want to stay. John, if you're listening, he probably has a huge smile.
Oh, cute. You can share it with him. You can share it. It's like, look, I was speaking wonders about you.
There you go.
Now, continuing a little bit with Serbia and Serbian culture and stuff like that,
Yes,
I've never visited. I would love to.
you should.
The closest I've been is Albania,
Yeah.
but then that's a little bit further to the south. I
Yes.
suppose there are some things in common, but a lot of things are different as well.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
when you have visited Serbia or Bosnia, what's it like? What do you like about it? What's interesting?
Okay, so I would definitely have to say the nature. That's the one thing. We have so many lakes, so many rivers, mountains. You have the beauty of, for example, the colder regions. So the capital of Bosnia, Sarajevo, around there, you can go skiing. That's where the Olympic Games were in 1984, right? So you can go skiing. The main mountain is called Yahorina. So it's slowly becoming more touristy. And then, let's say in the summer, all you have to do is drive down about 3 hours or so, and you're at the Adriatic Sea. So you can basically go along the coast. There's a small portion now that's Bosnian, or you can go to Montenegro. And I just find that because of the difference in the weather, you can experience so many different kinds of activities if you're an outdoorsy person. Also, the food. I love the food. Our most famous dish is cevapi, which are these little, they're not, I don't want to say sausage rolls. It's made of beef and lamb, and it's rolled and seasoned, and then you have it on pita bread that is slowly kind of baked on a huge barbecue. And then it's also served with onions, with yogurt, and with this very strong creamy cheese. So this is a huge influence from the Turks because we were also in the Ottoman Empire. So in terms of our cuisine, we have a mixture of Ottoman-like food as well as Austro-Hungarian because of that empire as well. So it's like you kind of get the best of both worlds from the south and from the north. So yeah, I would definitely say nature, food, and then warmth from the people. You know, I've traveled to many places and I just find that no matter who comes to visit, which of my friends, we have people coming from all over the world. It's slowly becoming discovered. It's not as great of a destination, of course, as France, England, Germany, right? But everyone welcomes you with open arms. You know, here's food. That's the number one thing. Here's food. Here's a drink. Come sit with us all at a table together. Let's sing, let's dance. And it's just kind of that simplicity of life that I think really makes it feel like home that I don't really get here. Do you know what I mean? It's different in such a big country like Canada.
And in a big city as well, because I
And
assume that
yes.
previously where you lived in Edmonton, you said, I imagine that it's the kind of like small town vibe where people say hello to each other when you walk past each other in the
Hmm.
street. People are
Hmm.
friendlier and more polite. But then
Hmm.
wherever you go in any country, if you're in like a capital or a huge metropolis,
Yes.
people are too busy. They're rushing around. It's rush hour. They don't care if there's a
Go, go,
stranger
go,
because
go.
there are so many strangers that they'll walk past every single day. So
Yes.
the mentality and how friendly people are will change depending on how big the city is.
This
But
is true.
speaking about Bosnia, for example, like if people welcome me with food, then I'd be happy. That's all
I
I
know.
need.
Yeah. And you're so bubbly and warm. I feel like you would just fit right in. And you
Give me
almost
the
look
food.
like me a little bit from there. You have, the dark features. You would totally pass. I'll give you a Serbian name after this.
Okay, perfect. No, it sounds good because I was actually considering going to Bosnia and Montenegro this summer.
You should.
And in the end, we're not going to do it because we've got lots of weddings to go
Oh,
to,
yeah.
lots of time off, and these are
Oh,
really expensive. And at the same time, we have weddings in Spain or England, which
oh,
obviously means we have to fly. And, you know, it's not expensive too much, but it's still a bit of a pain
that's
if
up.
you have to be going from one country to another every weekend, which is kind of impacting our holiday plans. But
Of
maybe
course.
next year, a little road trip around like the Balkans could be
Yes.
in stock.
Yes. And if you ever need any recommendations, I'm here. You just get a car and everything's so close. That's what's amazing about Europe too, right? Like you said, you can go to a different country you'll be there in a few hours, even if you drive. Where I am, you drive for 6 hours and you're in Montreal. So I mean, and there's nothing in between. It's not like you could see so many things. You just see a road and you see a forest.
Sounds, I mean, naturally for nature, I'm sure it's beautiful. But yeah, it's not the same, I guess, cultural differences in such a
Yes.
short space, and
Yeah.
in just an hour, you can be in a different country that speaks a different language, and that is the beauty of
So
Europe, in
beautiful.
my opinion.
And the architecture and the history. So much to
For
it.
sure. Now, I want to say this before I forget because whenever I'm interviewing people, I'm always trying to remember different things that come into my mind as I'm going, and
Uh-huh.
there are a few things related to language, and in particular,
Yes.
differences between British English and North American English. Because you mentioned school, and at school in North America, you have different grades. So you're in grade one, grade two, etc. In
Yes.
England, we say year one, year two, year three. So I was
Oh,
in year 10. I was in year
interesting.
8. And that's
Yes.
one thing, but related to grade, also if you do an exam and you get an A or you get a 10 out of 10, this in American English or Canadian English is your grade. However, in British English, we say it's your mark. So I got really, really high marks. I got a good mark. So that's
Yes.
one little curiosity to be aware of. And the other final thing related to school is that in North America, you say math, singular, whereas in the UK we always say maths.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. We will, you know, I've seen this before in terms of different branches of math. And some of my students who've learned British English, let's say from the Middle East, they will say maths. But then when you say it here, you're taught, okay, well, plural for these kinds of words that end in the th doesn't have an S. And I go, no, no, there are many, there are many differences I found over the years between these two varieties, right? Or we say elevator and you say,
Lift.
that's right. Or we say a parking and you say it's a
A car park.
car park, which makes sense because car
You
park.
park your car, you know? A
That's right.
parking
And the
lot.
lift
What do you mean
makes
lot?
sense. Yeah.
It lifts you, exactly.
It literally, yeah, you know what? American English is very interesting in certain ways. Or we say fall and you say,
Autumn. And in this case, I suppose yours kind of makes sense because the leaves do fall. But I actually made a video related to this. I think it
uh-huh,
was 6 months ago, so I don't
uh-huh,
remember everything exactly. But it
uh-huh.
was the origin or why in North America you say fall and why we say autumn. And it turns out that previously it was an old English word, and
Okay.
in the United Kingdom we used fall. And then, of course, many Brits moved over to the United States and Canada, and that word kind of stayed there and it stayed in use. Whereas in the United Kingdom, it became a
Interesting.
bit old fashioned, or just through evolution of the language, we
Yes.
stopped using it.
Yes.
Whereas in North America, you kept using it. So, a
Yeah.
little interesting thing to be aware of too.
But it sounds very posh. Autumn. I love it.
Autumn.
Fall. It just sounds so lazy.
Eh.
Just yeah.
Now, let's move on to something nice and easy because
Yes.
I've asked you all about your company and your classes and about how it started, your
Right.
origins. But what are you into? When and if you've got free time, what do you normally do with yourself?
I love going for walks. I love just, you know, anywhere. Take me to a park, to, well, we have a beach. We have a waterfront, which is a lake of Lake Ontario. Love walking there in the neighborhood. I just find that walking, even by myself, gives me such peace. If I'm stressed, if I'm tired, if I'm anxious, put my headphones on and just walk. So I love that. Um, love this is European culture. Love going for coffee, sitting on a patio and having a coffee and chatting with my friends. And then I would say, eh, I don't know, maybe anything art related, museums. Um, Going to any kind of galleries. I do this mostly with my husband. We love just observing artwork for hours and talking about it. So yeah, I would definitely have to say anything related to nature, coffee, and art.
The trifecta.
That's right. That's right. How about you?
No, I mean, I'm with you with the first two for
Uh-huh.
sure. Like walking, I always go for walks, and I find that when I'm walking, it's good to de-stress and unwind and just relax and forget about like any stress that you might have at
Mm,
that time. But
yeah,
also, when you're going for a walk, it's a good moment to be creative. So a lot of like video ideas or
I've
business ideas
noticed.
will come when I'm walking,
Yeah.
and I'll go for a walk and record videos at the same time just because I'm always at home. So I
Yes.
need moments to get out of the house. So walking is a big thing for me as well.
Yes.
Coffee too, out of necessity, I think, um, because I didn't grow up drinking coffee. I had a little bit of tea being a Brit, but I
Yes.
wasn't really bothered about like warm caffeinated drinks in general
Yes.
until I was at uni and I was studying more and I started to go to the gym with a couple of my flatmates. And
Yes.
then they'd have like an espresso before they went and worked out. So I was like, oh,
Yes.
go on then. If that's going to give me a little bit of a buzz, I'll give it a go. And
Yep.
then from that moment, coffee started to become a bigger part of my life. And now
Um,
I wouldn't say I'm a coffee connoisseur. Like, I can definitely have good coffee and bad coffee. I'm not
Yeah,
going to be stuck up about it.
yeah.
But where we differ is museums and galleries. Because for me,
Fair.
like, I get why other people like it, but I
Yes.
just get restless and bored. And I feel like I can't appreciate artwork like most people. Or I
Yeah,
just like, oh, I wonder what's going on in the football. And I'll start checking my phone.
I get that. I get the football thing. Oh, that's another thing, football and soccer. And you mentioned flatmates, and we say roommates,
Uh-huh.
right? But yes, I get the soccer thing because my dad and brother are fanatics. I mean, my dad played soccer his entire life, then he trained my brother's soccer team. And I know so many teams because of them. And I think I've even learned about different countries through soccer because you learn so much about the flags, the language, the capital cities through these teams. But yeah, it's definitely, I don't want to be biased, but soccer has to be like my favorite sport. I don't necessarily watch it all the time, but I feel that it's the most passionate. There's something about soccer in comparison to, let's say, baseball, basketball. But yeah, yeah, I get that. And I see it in your content a lot. It's your soccer. What is your favorite soccer team?
Leeds United, of course.
Of course.
For the untrained eye, this means nothing. But to the trained eye, this is the name of the Leeds United Stadium, Elland Road, because it's built on a road called Elland Road. So then they call the stadium Elland Road.
Good
And
to know.
by the time this is released, we will just be starting the new season. But when we are recording this, Leeds have just been promoted to the Promised Land, to the Premier League. So come on, Leeds.
My
Fingers
husband's
crossed
an
we stay
Arsenal
up.
fan. Is that bad? Is that a
Hmm?
rival? My husband is a huge Arsenal fan. Is that a rival of?
Not really. No, no, no.
Okay.
Because Leeds is in the north of England. It's a big city, but it's not huge. So then
Uh-huh.
our main rivals are usually, well, it used to
There.
be Manchester United because Leeds and Manchester are similar in size. Manchester's bigger, but it's also uglier. And Leeds is a bit smaller, and we used to be equally successful until the last like 30, 40 years. And yeah, it's not been a good recent history for us, but we're on the up.
The fans are still there. The fans keep it
Exactly.
going. Yeah.
We'll stick by the club, whatever happens. But anyway, we've been chatting for 40 odd minutes and we haven't got round to asking any chat GPT randomly generated questions. So
Oh,
that's a
okay.
sign
Let's
that
do it.
it has flown by and flowed very well. And let's finish with one final question. Because I've mentioned that I love food. And if I went to Bosnia and people would welcome me with food, I'd be a happy boy. So if you could have a perfect three-course meal, what would it be? Starter, main, and dessert. What would you go for?
I've never been asked that question before.
Oh no, this is my go-to question to know if I like that person or not.
The perfect three-course meal.
Of course, you don't have to pinpoint exact things, but you could say
Mhm.
maybe for
Mhm.
starter and perhaps for the main.
Okay. So
Yep.
for the the appetizer, I love fried calamari with, but specifically with tzatziki. Okay.
Mhm.
For the main, I would have to say, oh my goodness, this is hard. I just, wow, this is hard because it's like, what do you love the most for it to be your ideal kind of meal? I love pasta. I love different kinds of pasta, but I also love chicken and steak. Louis, why are you doing this to me?
Having chicken, steak, pasta, the
Potatoes.
sausage
Something
roll thing you said.
something with potatoes, something with roasted potatoes and maybe a meat. And then for my dessert, something that is chocolate based. Because dessert for me, it's the focus is on the chocolate. I like chocolate and hazelnuts. So if you could kind of combine the two in any form, whether that is cake, whether that is a gelato, I'm okay with that. And a coffee, please.
That leads me to another question because I
Yes.
was speaking to my students earlier about coffee and how much coffee they drink and if they have coffee when they go to a restaurant after dinner. Do you?
Every single time.
Yeah?
Every single time. So if I'm sitting and I'm eating, I will always ask the server, "Excuse me," but it has to be espresso. I have. I mean, it really is. Coffee really is addicting. It really is because I've noticed when I stop drinking it, I get irritable, and I go, "Huh." You listen to your body, and it's odd, but yes, I do. I ask for an espresso, and it's specifically a cappuccino. I like macchiatos too, but yes, I do ask. I'm guilty of that. And every time we do it, even if we're in a rush, my friends are like, "Oh, here we go again. Now we have to sit and wait for you to finish your coffee." But it ends it off right? It's like the cherry on top.
I mean, I get it if it's during the day, but in for the evening meal, like I just gets to my head, and then I'm
Get
like, oh my
wired.
God, I'm not going to sleep tonight. Gonna
Yeah.
be up all night. What a
Yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it depends. If it's after 7, I think that's my cutoff. If I have an earlier dinner, maybe at 5, I'm okay. But 7, you're right. That's it. You're staring at the ceiling all night long for sure.
Right, perfect. Well, on that bombshell, let's call it a day. So,
Good.
first of all, thank you everybody for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a thing or two about English, about life, about Ivana, and I really appreciate it. And Ivana, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you more and share more about you and your life.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope that you all enjoy this chat, and I hope that we can at some point collaborate again.
Perfect. Sounds like a plan. So, thank you everybody, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.